Good evening, everyone. So, once a year we do a State of the Parish address at the Masses on a weekend, and today is your lucky day. We do hear the gospel reading, not the gospel reading, the second reading from St. James, that, St. James is focusing on the relationship, even simple but succinctly, between faith and works. Right, and so he's focusing on that relationship, and we hear from St. James today that he says, someone might say, you have faith and I have works, but demonstrate to me your faith without works, and I will demonstrate to you my faith from my works. Right, and so we see this demonstration of faith by the things that we do and how we live our life. As part of the accountability report is coming, but as part of the State of the Parish, we are also sending out the accountability report and a letter that comes from me. I hope you will take the time to look at that and read it. There is more information that will be in that than is here, but I did want to take just a little bit of a snapshot from the accountability report, because if you look at that at first, you will see a community of faith. Right, you will see that in our community, we continue to grow. We added over 100 families last year for now a total of about 5,200 members in our community. We had 23 adults either be baptized or received into full communion and confirmed becoming Catholic last year in our community. We had 101 baby baptisms. You can give a round of applause for that if you want. That's amazing. It really is. We had, I think it was 90 first communicants, so 90 first communions, and 70 confirmations of youth, in addition to the ones we had that were of the adults. It's an amazing thing to kind of see these numbers as a snapshot of the faith and vitality of our parish community. We also had over 150 people registered for our Bible studies in the fall and in the spring, right? There's a hunger and a desire to grow in faith in our community. So we see a community of faith. Then the question can be asked, well, is that demonstrated through our works? Do we demonstrate our faith through what we do? Just as another little snapshot, I know one of the things that we did this last year was a new initiative, and so we have a Connect for Christ group that is our 3rd through 5th graders, and this was a combined effort both of our students in the school and our students in parish religious education, and so they were trying to meet the needs of someone else. And so what they did is they partnered up with an organization called Water Step. Water Step helps to purify water. Right, so they go through a whole process. They do about 400 projects a year around the world. They've been in 72 different countries to bring clean water to those who need it. And so one of the potential fundraisers for them is the collection of shoes. So they had an exporter that would buy the shoes, and then they would get $1 for every shoe or so, so they could help fund the clean water projects. Our group got very enthusiastically engaged with Water Step. And we collected, our students, 3rd through 5th graders, collected 2,800 pounds of shoes. That's a lot. And they were all Nike Air Jordan First Edition. 2,800 pounds. I mean, that's an amazing action taken in response to faith, a demonstration of our faith. Of course, we have many of other ways that we do that. We have our bereavement team. We had about 20 funerals last year, and many of those had meals that associated with the grieving families to be able to serve them. We've had, I myself, and I haven't asked you this ahead of time, but I had 13 couples that I prepared for marriage last year. How many did you have?
I'd say probably 15 if you just count the focus.
Right. So about 15 couples. So we're always engaged in young people that are trying to grow in their faith as they seek to make a commitment to each other in the covenant of marriage. That happens throughout our community. It's an amazing way to journey with, especially often young people. So that's a great thing. We do consistently and constantly give of ourselves generously for the needs of others. There's so many different collections that we do, either as individual ministry groups or as a whole parish community, where we're collecting non-perishable food or hygiene items or household goods for immigrants, or we're helping pregnant mothers that are on journeying trying to keep their child, and they're going through all that, where we meet those needs of others in that journey. As a whole, it's another snapshot, just as a whole, from what we can track, we know that your generosity was $644,000 last year to organizations or needs beyond our parish community. Some of that's the Catholic Services Appeal, some of that's tuition assistance through the Catholic Education Foundation, some of that is the direct assistance to those who are in need through our St. Vincent de Paul Society. Right? There are many ways that our generosity extends outside of this community. So we do demonstrate our faith through our work. And despite all that, we are also facing some challenges. So as we face those challenges, I want to explain them a little bit, and then I want to ask for your both prayers and potential action. Right? And so the challenges we face are financial. And I know everybody loves to talk about finances, don't they? We don't, right? It's uncomfortable for us. But I think it's part of the reality of how our families work. It's part of the reality about how our community works, that we need to discuss some of those finances. And so our financial situation is what I would say is a challenge. So you know that we did the Beacon of Hope campaign, and we did a lot of big projects, some big ticket projects like replacing all of the HVAC, all of the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning units in the buildings, right? And we had a capital campaign for that, and we also took out some debt for that. And on top of that, we also had to replace all the roofs. So when we evaluated the roofs, instead of just doing patch jobs or things like that to fix leaks, we had to take it all the way down to the metal and replace all the flat roofs on the building. And so that was another $1.5 million that was an unexpected, at that level, an unexpected expense for that, but it had to be done to protect our home, right? To be able to manage the facility that we have that enables us to be a worshiping community with God and each other. We also had some what I would say are mistakes in budgeting. So we misaligned what we thought our expenses were, especially for faculty and staff within the school. And so we had a budget line that was out of whack from what our reality was. And it was misaligned with what our income was. And so that happened last year. You can see that in the accountability report. Together, parish and school had about a $300,000 deficit last year. And then we're facing this year really a slight, somewhat maybe 20 student decrease in enrollment, but that's all tuition money that's not coming in this year too. So we're trying to respond to all of those things, and we need better accountability, and I'll take responsibility for that with our own budgeting process and financial reports, but we need to do better, right? We need to go in some direction. So the Finance Council early last spring started noticing all these things, started talking about it, and we've been able to respond by having some gatherings with some of our parishioners over the summer to have a conversation, seek advice and input, to be able to get their insights and wisdom. And so we had a number of those conversations. And so the way we're going is both trying to reduce expenses and also trying to increase revenue. So we're looking at both of those ways to respond to this situation, to cover the debt service, which is almost $500,000 a year, and is probably here for a minimum of 10 years unless we do something specifically to address that. We would have to be paying that $500,000 for the next 10 years to pay off the debt, and seeking your input. So one of the things that we're responding to, say, in the parish, so to reduce expenses on the parish side of ministry, we've asked all of our ministry leaders to reduce their budgets by 5%. We're looking at our vendors and renegotiating some of the contracts for service. We're exploring ways to reduce those expenses. On the school side, they have adjusted some staffing already, and they also are looking at a 5% decrease in the discretionary spending that they have. Some of our spending is fixed costs, but that's one of the things we're doing on the school side as well as on the parish side. And then we also have our debt. And so one of the things we're looking at is the possibility, there are pretty good rates, there's pretty good schedules, but we're looking at maybe consolidating a couple of different debts so that we can have a better, a reduced amount of financial servicing or debt servicing each year, right? So we're looking at those things as possibilities. On the revenue side, we talked with all the people that gathered with the communities, the small group gatherings we had, and we really gave two asks to them. We are intending, with the stewardship process in the spring, to be able to really make and communicate our needs much more clearly and encourage generosity among our parishioners. I'll be the first one to step up and try to do that. For now, we asked them the potential of praying for and considering whether we could increase to stewardship by 20% and or a one-time gift for this year to cover until we can have the more communication and process in the spring, right? And so that some of those parishioners have responded very generously, and have already committed an additional $100,000 this year towards our needs over that, right? And so we're very grateful to them and for their leadership in that role. And I do ask all of you to consider that. I know it is a sacrifice. I know we are in difficult times, uncertain times, expensive times. Many of you are raising children. Many of you are helping with your grandchildren. Many of you are helping with your parents. I know that the ask and the request is asking for a sacrifice, and I do not do that lightly, right? I do not ask you to do that, and not everybody's going to have that capacity to respond in the same way. But we hear in the gospel reading that if anyone wants to come after Jesus, we have to deny ourselves, take up our cross, and follow him. And that's one of the ways that we do that in tangible, real ways, that this request is, in a sense, a taking up of the cross. If you are able and you can prayerfully consider that, I would be grateful and our community would be grateful for your generosity and for your sacrifice. It is important for us that we contribute. We are better together, and that we contribute with each other to the mission and are able to do what God has called us to do in a way that is good, as good Christian stewardship, right? That we are both looking at our expenses and our revenues to be able to create a sustainable path forward for us in the coming years. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for not throwing anything at me. I think it's important for us to be able to talk frankly about that, and the letter and the accountability report do have more information for your review, and we're happy to provide additional information if you want it or need it. So if you would like more than what is in there, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at the parish office. Also, please pray for us. As a community, pray for one another, because I don't think, I've said this and I'm not trying to minimize anything, this to me is not a crisis, it is a challenge though. It's a reality that we're facing, and it could be a crisis if we don't do anything about it now. So the leadership and the vision of the Finance Council has been very helpful in us to be able to be proactive at this point to make some changes so it doesn't become a bigger problem down the road. So I'm grateful again to them. So thank you all. As we demonstrate our faith by our works, as we put our faith into practice, we are following Jesus. In each of those small ways and big ways that we sacrifice, we are taking up our cross and we are following him. May he continue to guide us, to protect us, and to lead us to do the work that he's called us to do, and to have the faith and the trust in him that is the sign of our community, a community of faith and of work.